I'm Tom Wild, the CEO of Ramp. And Ramp is a enterprise and media content management platform for video based out of Boston. I'm excited to be the moderator again here this year, as we did last year. And the title of this one is Content Management Strategies for Enterprise Content Platforms. And we have a really great panel here. You're going to get a bunch of different perspectives from suppliers, people in the value chain, people who have implemented these technologies, et cetera. And so meant to be a discussion format. When you have a question, just raise your hand. You know, there's not a huge group, so we can easily kind of pause, answer questions, and we can do that at the end as well. Thought I'd start by introducing the panelists here, and then I'll let them describe in more detail their roles at their respective organizations and a little bit of background on their companies as well. We've got going from my left down the table here, Mark Daniel, Manager of Media and Entertainment at NetApp. Al Falashi, Marketing Manager at Wyden Enterprises, David Stravash from the United States Postal Service, and Scott Lawson from QAD. So rather than steal your thunder, I'll let you guys do the introductions of yourself. So Mark, you want to start?
Well, as you said, I'm the manager of the media and entertainment vertical at NetApp. NetApp is one of the real newer players in media storage because we've been able to expand our portfolio quite a bit, and we are now in major media companies around the world in some of the most critical workflows that they have. So, turn it over to you.
I'm Al Falashi. I'm the customer marketing manager at Wyden Enterprises. We're a cloud-based provider of digital asset management services. I'm the quote-unquote video guy at Wyden. Two sides of that, creating the videos that we use in our marketing efforts, and then also working with our customers to collaborate and work with them on best practices on how to manage their videos amongst their asset mix, including logos, images, PDFs, brochures, and getting more usage out of their video assets.
I'm Dave Stravick with the United States Postal Service. We're a package delivery and mailing company, as you're well aware, and also government agency. I'm also one of the video guys at the United States Postal Service. I spent about 5 years in their studio helping coordinate all the studio activities as well as the content management system and the video on demand system, working with our information technology partners. I currently am working with our website entities for our intranet and our extranet, and also for our corporate website called about.usps.com. And however, with all of that, it still involves integrating video and walking business drivers through best practices, whether it be about information architecture or about best practices for using video, or whether it's about HTML5 or responsive web design. That's we consider it all one holistic ecosystem.
Very good. My name is Scott Lawson. I am with QAD. We're a software company for manufacturers. So we make enterprise resource planning or ERP software and supply chain software specifically for manufacturers. We've been making software for about 35 years, long before the internet, browsers, HTML, and all that kind of stuff. And what I do, I'm the director of IT architecture, so I work with the business and IT to put in systems for both our customers as well as our internal audience, global audience. We're about 1,600 people worldwide. And what we do with video, we've been streaming video for over 10 years, internal for our corporation as well as for educational purposes for our customers and partners. And so we need, our emphasis on video is not production, it's letting everybody make a video, make and produce and publish and find a video as easy as making an email and sending an email and communicating that way. So that's what we're trying to enable with streaming media.
Great. And what I thought we'd do for this panel discussion is sort of trace the arc of a piece of video content. Everything from how do you create it, how do you manage it, distribute it, syndicate it, all the way out to when you want to archive it, right? And it becomes part of your content collection. The use cases for video continue to grow very rapidly within the enterprise in many ways. The way we talk about it at Ramp is video is becoming a new document, right? That many things that we've done as employees and customers and vendors using documents is being either supplanted by video or augmented by video. The combination of sight, sound, and motion, all of you, I'm sure, have watched a YouTube video. There's something very compelling about video in terms of its ability to communicate complex messages, in a very sort of compact use case and format. However, video is much, much more complicated and difficult to behave inside of the sort of last 20 years of investment enterprises have made with things like enterprise content management, knowledge management, enterprise search, learning management systems. And so, as you'll hear throughout the course of this panel, I hope a lot of strategies for how to make video perform, how to make it a first-class citizen in the existing landscape of all these different content architectures and platforms that have been put in place. So why don't we start with content creation, and David, maybe I'll have you start here as someone responsible for, as you described your role, in making video a useful part of communicating and engaging employees and constituents sort of inside and outside the company. How do you think about the creation and the production side of this? Because after all, that's sort of the starting point. Unlike a document where anyone can sit down with Microsoft Word and create a piece of enterprise content, how do you think about creating video content?
Well, we start from the user experience, and being that I had a television background before I got into what was corporate video and then corporate multimedia, and now new media, if you will, we approach it from a traditional point of view to identify the needs of the organization and where video can really be used to benefit the organization, whether it be CEO announcements, which recently, as an example, we're going to be getting a new Postmaster General, and so there's announcements around that. Whether it's about our financial statements that we're putting out there and educating employees, or if it's just informational about new products and services, and we've had a lot of that in the past year or so, whether it be about rebranding or about new products that are coming up. Mm-hmm. So we're looking for those opportunities, and at the same time trying to focus around these user experiences where I'm in corporate communications, so I don't come from the IT perspective. I'm looking at, where are people watching this? Are they watching it on YouTube? Are they watching it on within our intranet? Do we need it on our extranet for employees? The interesting thing about the Postal Service is, even though we have about 550,000 employees, we only have about 150,000 computers. Most of our employees, as you would imagine, are out there either touching mail and package delivery, or they're helping manage mail and package delivery, and they don't have access to our intranet. So, how do we get to those employees, and how will they experience it? And at the same time, serving that audience as well as serving the executive audience, the ones that are dishing the laptops and going with the iPads, and the fact that you want to be able to make the videos available on your mobile phones, but at the same time, our metrics show that no one's watching it on their mobile phones, even though we're making it available. So,
at this point, yeah.
At this point, that's not going to be the same in the future. We all know that.
Well, Scott, you mentioned allowing everyone to be able to create this video content. So, maybe sometimes referred to as EGC or employee-generated content. How is video different than, say, the fact that you could sit down and write a Word document? That's employee-generated content. So, how does video differ, and how have you approached that?
Yeah, video is different because people think it's hard to do, and it has been hard to do. And the barriers, though, to creating video have pretty much evaporated. You have, all of our employees have laptops and things like that, and the laptops have cameras on them, and we have headsets and stuff, and people know how to make videos nowadays. And so it seems harder, but I don't think it really is harder. I think the hard part is expressing yourself in a video. And what I try to tell people is just talk. Just production values be damned. At QAD, we don't have any AV people. We don't have a sound room. We don't have any mixing material, mixing boards. I don't even know what they're called, because we don't have any. We have a few cameras. We have some rooms, conference rooms with video cameras in them, but most people make videos to explain things to other people. We're a learning organization. Our software is complicated. We have 80 different products. We have people in all different kinds of countries and so forth. And what we try to tell people do is just sit down, and talk. Do the broadcaster thing. In fact, I've tried to get people away from editing. I think editing is one of those barriers to entry.
Right.
People think like, oh, I gotta stitch it all together and stuff. And yeah, I agree, editing makes a very nice video. And I'm not saying people shouldn't do that, but if you want to get your message out, if you want to get your email out, or your Word document as you put it, yeah, you're going to do some editing, but the video editing has to be done up front. So I tell people, act like a broadcaster. Think about your piece, write down what you want to say, and then just deliver it. Deliver it once. Try not to worry about if you said or you stalled, or you got mixed up. Just think that you're a live performer. And what we've tried to do is choose tools that can allow people to do that right at their desktop, as well as be able to publish that right away into our media repository, and be able to go into the media repository and see who's viewing it and see who's watching it, have kind of a little portal of your video content so that you can see what it is. So I think as people get more literate with making videos, and videos get less and less produced, as we see on YouTube all the time, that people will become more and more comfortable with creating that content and being able to just talk.
And that certainly will lead to more video content, which will lead to search challenges. So maybe switching gears a little bit,
Right.
Mark, when you think about sort of the foundation for making videos findable, maybe talk a little bit about what you see out there across both media and enterprise, and then we'll kind of go down the table from there.
Sure. Let me kind of start with a story. About a month ago, I was talking to a senior VP of a major media company in New York, and he was telling me that across their production and broadcast environment, they probably had about 30 different MAM systems. And the reason for that was because the MAM
Which is a media asset management.
Media asset management systems, or digital asset management for those of you. And the reason they had so many was because those systems are typically purchased and put in place by the workflow owners, because they had specific jobs they needed to get done. They needed to make sure that data was findable for their workflow. So they would put the solutions in place. They would have their own metadata schema. In other words, this is what's included in the metadata, so you can search on it for that type of thing. And each one of these systems had its own storage infrastructure behind it. None of them were designed to work with each other. And so his big problem was that he was having continual growth in these environments, having to buy terabytes and petabytes for each one of these things, and not knowing what was on them. He, let's say if one production company had or production department had a bit of footage that the other production department would want, they'd have to put it on some kind of mobile format and pass it over to them. Now they would have a copy of it. And he said he may be sitting on 20, 25 copies of the same thing, yet it just keeps growing. And so it's a matter of looking at your entire workflow. Who's creating the content? Who's going to consume the content? How do you want to use that content over time? So you can start to come up with something a little bit more unified in the way you define content in its metadata and how you keep track of it. And it's important for us to look at the fact that you have to support the workflow that's needed to be done. So we're not sitting there and saying this company made a mistake by having so many MAM systems. They had to keep track of this thing. But now that we have an environment where we have multiple uses for content across multiple devices and audiences that no longer want linear, they want to be able to on demand, you have to have a way so you can find the content, so the customer can find the content, and it's very complex. There are ways to simplify that, and we can talk about that a little bit later maybe.
Okay. Al, why is it different? Why is video different, and therefore, how do you approach video for findability, for search? What's the role of metadata, and how do customers succeed on making sure videos just don't fall into a black hole?
Sure. Maybe to address that first point of why is it different from as a digital asset management provider, going back, we're a 67-year-old company, have been making software for 25 years. We started off dealing with images, logos, brochures. Those were made easy to find and search for, and they just worked. And video had this barrier of entry to it that most marketers who are usually the ones that are interfacing with digital asset management systems in one way or another. They don't want to, care to understand the complexities of video. They just want it to work. When they click on the thing, they want to watch it. And so therein lies the biggest barrier to entry for video to be repurposed more, because they're never quite sure, they're not 100% confident that when they distribute their content via video, that it's going to work when the end user clicks on it. In terms of searchability, the biggest issue is just where to look. As Mark had mentioned, 35 different MAM systems.
30 plus, yeah.
Yeah, so where do you look? When we look at, from our standpoint, when we look at the digital asset lifecycle, there's a creation phase, there's a management phase, there's a distribution phase, an analytics phase, and then an archive phase. What we tend to see happen with video specifically is people go directly from a creation phase into a distribution phase. Somebody is creating a video for a specific purpose, and it goes directly from that creation to that distribution point to be purposed. And nobody ever thinks about repurposing it. So the only people that know about it are the people that created it and the people that ordered it. In a company of 500,000 employees, where do they go to look for it? So there is no central repository for it. And with those different MAM systems, sometimes there's actually a good reason for each of them, because they all kind of do something slightly different. From our standpoint, we like to be that central repository of metadata and files, and then be able to push to all those different things, so different work groups within an organization, within the enterprise, can use their specific MAM platform to do exactly what it is that they want to do. So the marketing department may have a MAM system. It's going to look very different than the training department and have different features. So still backing up and having that management layer that allows all of those assets, those video assets, to work, just work with the click of a button and then be repurposed.
Scott, how do you enforce how to title a video, how to tag it when people are creating these videos? How do you make sure that it's not kind of spreading in 500 directions, never to be sort of organized again?
Yeah, we try. So what we did is we took our metadata systems for not just video, but for documents, documentation, and white papers and data sheets and all that kind of stuff that the organization has, and we created a basic metadata system for that based on our product names and some other kind of areas. So we took that and we encoded it into our content management system for video in the way of folders, so that people can navigate and find out what those things are, and also put them as tags so that when you search, you can find those things. Titles, not so much. We don't really enforce anything about titles of files. In the system we've been using so far, which is MediaSite, it doesn't really have a file name that is recognizable. And I think that's a good thing. Now, our marketers don't think that's a good thing, because when they get the URL, that just doesn't help the SEO very well.
Right.
So
Sure,
I think an essential thing is if that, there's internal and there's external, but I think the external systems really need a way to, brand that URL of that particular video, or name the file or whatever. The positive side of no file names is you can move them around, doesn't matter where they are. So we try to do that, and then if I can go back to search, that actually helped really well, because we use Google Search Appliance for our enterprise search, and we were able to look at that tree structure and some of that metadata to be able to find things, find videos and classes and other documents, images or whatever, all in one swoop. So when you search on our system, you get everything about that subject, and then you can click the check boxes if you want to reduce down to just videos or whatnot. Mm-hmm. And so we've had pretty good success with that. Not without a lot of work, though. It was not magic at all.
Right. Yeah, video requires a bit of extra thinking. Did you?
Actually, I've been having a lot of fun with the Google Search Appliance and playing around with keywording, I got into working with our online solutions group in corporate communications at a time when we were flipping our intranet, speaking internally, to responsive web design and HTML5 compliant web templates. And with that, marrying that with the 10-plus-year-old video on demand system that streams Windows Media, which I heard in another panel people mentioning it, runs perfectly well for a desktop, which is true.
Yeah.
Marrying that with our responsive designs to create this sort of phased approach to getting towards a mobile experience, but at the same time throwing into the bucket keywording. So we're just bypassing meta tagging for now on the video side entirely, and we're putting it right into the video pages, creating an embedded experience for every video that goes up live, and the search appliance picks up on it just like that.
Like a web page, basically.
It is a web page.
It is a web page.
So so leveraging existing assets and an existing content management system and an existing video on demand system without, or not just without, but while knowing that at some point, the systems will evolve and there'll be new systems working with our IT partners when they come online. But at the same time, getting to the question of where do people look for this information, or where do they look for videos? We really know on our intranet where they go. When the homepage of the browser comes up, they just click into the search window and they go, because we're using analytics that tell us that. And so if we can create an experience, which we're working on right now, to have our videos embedded in an HTML page, and the search therefore picks up on our keywording and our text that we put into that page as well, people will end up finding the videos real easily. So this is in progress right now, but like I said, it's been a lot of fun kind of creating that workaround and working within the existing systems that we have.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point. It's sort of along the lines of what I started with, which is that all of these investments are still relying on text as a primary raw material, and that's true of the web too. I mean, Google, Facebook, Twitter, they're all still fundamentally based on text as a means to understand what the content is about.
Yeah, so we're applying standard SEO best practices and creating some good test searches for right now.
Right. Let's talk about distribution a little bit, and maybe start with mobile as always the elephant in the room. Mark, how is mobile changing enterprise video today? Is it here yet, or is it is it time to invest, or is it something to plan for rather than to pull the trigger on yet?
Oh no, it's here. It's here, and people are doing it today, and there's a lot of it out there. The problem is that it's very manual process oriented and that type of thing. There's not very many systems out there that are automating this, and it's something that you'll find that new solutions come about quite often. Again, though, it's a tough thing for the customers to find it. There can be so much of it out there. And the other thing is that in the professional consumer side, you're getting recommendation engines now, which is very similar to what Amazon and what Netflix does. If you watch this, you'll like that. And you start to build profiles of customers' information. That takes a lot of data chunking to find the right thing for customers, unless you do it on a simplistic basis, which some of them do. But it's not, so in other words, it's kind of the Wild West out there. There's not a lot that is very cost effective, that's very efficient, still a lot of manual processes. And on that manual processes side, I wanted to kind of explain something we had talked about earlier. I use a lot of library analogies because both my wife and my daughter are children's librarians in major libraries in the Chicago area. And you have to find this content somehow, and you're going to have mobile systems looking for it. You're going to have, say, video on demand from cable companies looking for it, that type of thing. When you were in college, and if you went to a larger college, maybe in smaller colleges they don't do this, but when you went to college, if you wanted to get something out of the library, you couldn't get into the stacks. They wouldn't let you there. You had to give the librarian a piece of paper that says, I want this book, and the librarian would go in the stacks and get it. Because if you didn't do that, you let everybody in the stacks, they went and said, oh, this isn't the book I want, and they'll put it somewhere else, and you never find that book again. It's never where it's supposed to be. And you need a system like that that's in place that's able to manage this content across the entire workflow, the entire monetization flow. So if all of a sudden you say, okay, I'm going to release this series to mobile apps, you have to go in and find it into the regular environment, and then you have to kick off certain workflows for transcoding or distribution geographically, that type of thing. And again, you can't, there are so many MAM systems out there and the rest of it, they typically don't work together. So what we're looking at NetApp is a world that would utilize what we're calling software-defined object storage. And I'm sure that a lot of you in the audience may know what object storage is. For those of you who don't, instead of having a file folder and a file name, you get a unique identifier code or a URL. So when you ingest content into this thing, you get an identifier code, kind of like getting a valet parking number. And that's how you identify that. You don't know where the content is, you don't know what it's sitting on, you don't really care as long as it's where it needs to be. And then all the MAM systems that are out there, whether they be for mobile or whether they be for something like that, are the research students who are going in and asking for that content. And then the object storage system goes ahead and gives you the content because you knew the claim check number. You'll find a lot of people that are having that today. You can buy object storage from all major storage vendors. They're usually appliances. So it's basically buy my box, and when you fill this up, buy another box and we can keep on going. Well, a lot of you, if you're in media companies, already have tons of storage now and you don't want to replace that stuff. And so a software-defined object storage allows you to utilize the content or utilize the storage you've already got, and then you can get rid of duplications and grow. But I think that there's that missing element for a lot of people when they're talking mobile, is where is the content that I need to get out there, So I can do the automated system, the transcodes, I can get it to the edge of the network, whatever you're doing with it. And it's that you'll get to it. You asked if it's being done today. It is being done today, but through a lot of manual processes. Some will say, I need this series or I need these files. They will either utilizing Signian or Aspera, or if they're doing it electronically, or they'll use mobile drives. They'll put it on something and then get it over to you. And there's no value added in that environment. You can get the machines to do it automatically, and that's kind of the missing element there.
David, you mentioned that you're sort of mobile ready, but you're not seeing mobile consumption yet. Maybe we'll bounce to Scott for a second. What's your experience around mobile in terms of the employee base and how they're consuming it? Are you ready for it, and are they consuming it?
We're ready for it because, we only have one video management system, and obviously our company's smaller. So it automates all that mobile stuff for you. You have to tell it. You have to say, I want this or that.
Right.
I would prefer to tell I want every video of all time in every format, but I don't have the storage for that.
Yeah.
So there is a little bit of manual work, doing that. But once you've set it up, I can do, a huge folder or a huge bunch of files all at one time, and it just cranks away doing that. But the question is, who watches it on what? So to me, mobile on the phone, this form factor, our videos are highly screen-oriented and text-oriented. We don't have football players, tumbling around like the NFL does. So it's almost never watched on that. That's not very useful. But it's watched a lot on iPads or a little bit of Androids. We're mostly iPad kind of people. So I would consider that mobile.
So David, is mobile the answer to we see this all the time too, that when you work in technology, you assume that everyone's sitting there with a $3,000 laptop and unlimited technology. But the reality is most major corporations that have more than 20, 30,000 employees are that large because there's a huge chunk of the workforce that is in the field. Right. And so is mobile the answer? If you're trying to train a postal carrier on driving safety, is that, do you think, the future here?
Well, there's some technology I can't speak to that I'm aware of that is currently being piloted as far as that goes. But I think the key is defining what is mobile, and it depends on the audience too. So sure, I'll watch Netflix at home on my iPhone and I won't have a problem with it, but will I really go to work and pull out my iPhone at my desk and watch an employee message? So you have to be realistic about where you want to place mobile and what mobile is. Again, in the panel earlier, I heard people talk about mobile and iPads. But from a corporate communications point of view, we all need to accept in an enterprise, iPads are not mobile. iPads are replacing laptops. So if you're an executive and you go, well, why can't the video play on my iPad? There's an obvious use reason for that. Now, getting it back to technologists, we all know why iPads or mobile. But the real key is to make some of those determinations and decisions on what assets are what is mobile for which audience, and how do you get to those people. And speaking about employees that, as an example, are not on the intranet, they're out in the field every day. Is it leveraging our YouTube channel? Is it leveraging our other social channels? We have a whole social media team. Do we get the message out that way? Or do we work through our extranet, our employee network that employees are allowed to go home and log into? These are all the conversations that are ongoing right now, and they're really terrific, because I think working closely with our IT partners, as an example, we have weekly calls with our IT program managers and we're from corporate communications. Sometimes it's the bad news call, but it's a forum that we get to air what we're looking to do, and they get to air out what they're seeing as problematic, and just at least create an awareness paradigm there within the organization. So no one's surprised when I'm talking to another content management system vendor other than the one that we use. And we're not surprised when we hear that they're looking for us to use SharePoint for more stuff, or whatever. So.
Right. How about security, Al? What do people have to think about around security when it comes to video, in terms of the content itself, the streams? What's different about video that way?
Well, within our system, the biggest security concerns are making sure that the right people are seeing the right content at the right time. And I don't know if I can say this, but I'm guessing that many of the MAM systems, and I know DAM systems for sure, have a series of what we call roles and permissions, or governance is another term that gets thrown out, and that's to make sure that you group like users together and you group like assets together, and then there is some sort of connection that allows you to do certain things. Maybe it's just view, maybe it's view and edit metadata. We have a video clipping feature where you can clip out portions of a video. That is a permission-based feature that we allow, or I should say, our customers can allow or disallow their users to be able to utilize based on what they feel is their best use case.
So David, how do you think about securing video content as it relates to, you mentioned SharePoint, is making video sort of a part of these systems one of the answers, because you already have sort of a security model there, or will it be its own silo? How have you tackled it so far?
Well, we try to use, leveraging existing systems that are already in place, roles and permissions, mostly Active Directory. Almost all of our content we design in a way, from the production standpoint, to not require that kind of lockdown. So if it's a CEO message, our CEO really wants all the employees to know about what's going on, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So there's very little of that going on. Some of our live streams, we are. So.
Mm-hmm. And Scott, how about you with security? Have you approached video differently, or is it kind of, if it's behind the firewall, it's okay?
We approach video and all security really as absolutely permission-based. So we don't define behind the firewall and outside of the firewall. Mm-hmm. All of our systems, whether it's video or not, I can log into from my home laptop with a single SAML token. So, I don't really, we have tried to completely eliminate VPN from our environment.
Right.
But that said, I think security is confusing for the user. So in our scenario, we're trying to hand over the creation and the distribution and all that kind of stuff to the end user, you that doesn't know anything about video or whatever. So unlike an email, which is completely insecure, and people send all kinds of secrets through email and it goes to all kinds of different places, and nobody ever thinks about it. They're like, oh, that's, I wouldn't use Google Drive, that's in the cloud, that's insecure. No, I'm going to send an email to my home address of the, secret corporate numbers or whatever. And like, great, that file is on now 50 other email servers. But we try to make them aware of that fact, and that video is really no different, in my opinion. Yep. I think it's just another asset that you have to think about who's the user. So we have one document on our inter knowledge base that is basically, where do I put my stuff? And it tries to cover all the use cases in a kind of tree way about, well, if it's for this audience, this audience, put it here. Make sure you think about putting these groups in it or whatever if it's for customers. Because the same groups we use for customers to see things on a white paper on the web are used over on a little bit of video that we made.
Sure. With about 9 minutes to go, questions? Questions? We'll keep going, and if you have one, raise your hand as we get to the end. Mark, how about the cloud? Is this this sort of cloud on-prem debate that goes on with video? How does a company decide what's right for them?
Well, it really depends on what you're trying to do and who the audience is. Cloud is a great location for a lot of public delivery of that content. Cloud is great for in production environments where you need to use burst compute for, say, graphics creation or transcoding, that type of thing. I know that in talking with some of our media customers, they are now getting licensed for content, if they're getting it from another company, that says that the content is not allowed off their premises because there's been some theft out of that cloud. There's not a lot of that, but it seems to be growing slowly. I think that it's a huge opportunity for you to utilize the facilities, especially if you don't have enough of your own. You need to be able to say, all of a sudden, you've got a marketing department that says, I'm going to have to produce a lot of content and get a lot of marketing material out for the holiday season. You either start building that 8-9 months earlier, or you utilize the cloud for getting some of that content created or distributed how you want to do it. And again, why build an entire distribution system to get all that holiday stuff out when 10 months out of the year it's doing basically nothing? Mm-hmm. So it's a great way to load balance your work, and it's something that everybody's got to look at. And again, it depends on what your model is, how you're going to be able to utilize it.
Scott, there's a question.
Has anybody spoken about lifetime of video? Is there an assumption that a video asset lasts forever, or is the content management system deleting stuff that's old?
I'll just repeat it so everyone can hear. So the question is around the sort of what's the right way to think about the life cycle or lifespan of a video and whether it gets archived. Go ahead, Al.
So within our system, we're built on top of Amazon. We utilize all of Amazon's services, all 4 of them. So EC2, S3, CloudFront, and now Glacier. Are you familiar with Glacier?
The cold storage.
That's the cold storage, right? So, and 2 ways to look at this from a video standpoint. Either the end of life of the video so we're a software company. We release 4 upgrades per year. So as soon as we have an upgrade, the video that I just made for the last thing, it's done. But it's cool to keep and throwback Thursdays on Friday. We can always throw up the version from 4 years ago. But I can put that in Glacier, and it's 1/7, 1/8 the cost of active storage. And for any of us who've been in video for a long enough time, where we probably remember the tape storage backup, if you're not even in that realm today. But you're used to it taking a couple hours to retrieve these files off of, and Glacier is the same way. I think with our test, right now it's running between 1 and 2 hours to retrieve. So when I do a video production, I have my zip of my project file, and I have my, high-res H.264 video, and that's the thing that goes into my DAM system that gets distributed and pushed out to our content management system, to all our social sites, and then I take that project file and I throw it directly up on Glacier, and hopefully I will never need to touch it, but if I do, I know it's managed completely within that Amazon environment, and I can get it within an hour or 2.
But you do bring up a good point. Content changes value over time, but you never know which way it's going to go. You can always sit there and say, well, this video I shot today is going to be of very little value to me in 6 months and then almost no value to me in 2 years. Yet if the person in the video does something that's newsworthy, all of a sudden the value of that just jumps right up. And so you have to look at how do you keep track of this across the entire life cycle? And you may have, you should have automated processes that move the content where it needs to be, because you look at the different levels of storage that you've got. You've got Glacier, but you still have tape out there. You have all different types of cloud. You have public cloud, private cloud, hybrid clouds, depending on what you want to do with this stuff. And you have to look at what's the value of this content. How much am I going to pay to get it out of the cloud? If I go into the cloud, am I stuck with that vendor? What happens if somebody has a better solution? Do I have to drag all that stuff out of the cloud and pay all those transport costs and then transport it back in? There's all sorts of models that you have to look at. But again, you really hit the nail on the head. There's very little that we've looked at in lifecycle management. NetApp is doing some pretty interesting stuff, and we can talk about it offline if you want to. But we feel that that's a huge part of it. Is the content in the right geographic location? Is it standing on the right platform that it has to be on for performance? And how long am I going to keep this? And if I'm going to keep it a long time, what happens if I need it again?
Question over here.
You talked about some training videos and some stuff from an HR perspective using rich content. How are you addressing the ADA compliance on videos like that? Are you using methods to kind of get those things transcribed, or how are you addressing those issues? Think about the post office, you're doing those kinds of things.
Everything's 508
Let me just repeat it for a second.
Yeah.
So question was about ADA compliance, Section 508 compliance as it relates to video. Go ahead.
Everything is open captioned. That's been our solution without having any other alternative systems in place. And with having a television facility that has been doing that historically within headquarters, that's what we do. Does it look sexy? No. It's got closed captioning that's open, meaning permanently on the video screen. The answer, yes. But we can guarantee that when videos are distributed, they've got the proper captioning.
They're
on
compliant.
They're compliant, yeah. So.
Scott, have you tackled that at all? Has that come up as a...
Doesn't really come up. We get a lot of people who, because of the nature of our videos, people just talk, like I was saying, and then afterwards they want a transcript of it, not necessarily for ADA compliance, but maybe they think, oh, well, let's translate the thing so that people in Poland can understand what the heck is going on here. And the problem, of course, with that is that when people talk, voice recognition systems cannot understand what they're saying, especially in a video, unless they are enunciating very well. I'm sure if we ran this whole thing through, it'd be garbled. So I try to tell them, no, do the transcript first. Write the script. Hey, there's an idea. And then you have it. And so some of our product and customer videos, they do that. And then we use the system to put in closed captions. But it's not really for compliance. We don't really need to worry about that all that much.
Transcription's a good workaround if your legal counsel greenlights it.
Right.
Yeah, and you get, I think we've seen tons of side dividends of transcription, which is it improves the searchability of the video. You can search within the video. You obviously get compliance. You can do translation of the video if you're starting with a transcription. So yeah, you have to think of it as a metadata strategy as well as a accessibility strategy, I think. About a minute left. Any other questions here, I think? Is that right? Yeah. Any last questions? Well, great. I want to thank you guys. Very interesting, and we enjoyed talking to you here this afternoon.
Thank you.